Today with the all-wheel drive Civic Type R, we are going to attempt to fix the car's current biggest issue. Well, I guess you could say it is probably the second biggest issue, first being our transmission is a little bit janky. I know I haven't really talked too much about the trans on this car, but we currently do not have a fourth gear, so that's minor details. We can get that sorted out later. But what I want to get done today and focus on today is dialing in these brakes. They work good, everything works fine, but being that the reservoir in the master is so close to the turbo, to the manifold, to the wastegate, to the downpipe, it gets very, very warm. Let's go on a drive to get some data. I'm gonna do about let's do a 20-minute drive and see how warm things actually get. Getting gat by a biker. So after a nice 20-minute cruise slash ripper slash using the brakes a little bit, only 20 minutes, our master cylinder got up to 375 degrees and the reservoir where it goes onto the master was at 260 degrees. Keep in mind, that was only 20 minutes. Imagine what it would get to after about an hour or two of ripping this thing. So here's the deal. .3 brake fluid, which is unfortunately what we currently have in the car, has a boiling temperature of around 400 degrees, if I'm not mistaken. 375, getting awfully close to that 400, a little bit sketchy. .4 is about 450 degrees, so that gives us a little bit of extra cushion if we need to swap out to .4 brake fluid. But clearly we have an underlying issue with everything being so close together. It's about an inch away from the manifold. So unfortunately, what we have to do today is completely relocate the turbo and the manifold and the wastegate and the downpipe and spend 40 hours redoing it all. I'm joking. We're definitely not doing that. At least not yet. If we have to down the road, I'm sure we won't have to. Today, what we're going to start off with is pulling all the hot parts off of the car. So the turbo, the manifold, the wastegate, the downpipe, and the dump tube. And all that is going to be coated with something called Cerakote. This alone should reduce the temperatures of all of the hot parts on this entire turbo kit drastically, and hopefully it's enough to get that temp down on the master cylinder and the brake reservoir. The reason I'm taking care of this right now instead of doing transmission work and getting this car tuned and all that good stuff is all that sounds fine and dandy until we go for an absolute ripper in this car when it's all dialed in and we lose our brakes because the fluid boils. That would not be fun to destroy our car that we just put 10 trillion hours into. Here we have all of the parts that are gonna get coated. Dump tube itself, the turbo manifold, downpipe, the turb ski, our wastegate, and the good old Jack Spania turbo guard. I'll probably powder coat this guy, a nice little splatter block. I think I'm gonna do the compressor housing as well. I think that looks super nice up in the bay. If everything else is coated, we might as well make those beautiful as well. So these three parts here, nothing needs to happen. We don't need to do any sort of disassembly. Those are just bare piping. This guy needs to be disassembled, and of course the turbo needs to be disassembled. Let's start off with the turbo. Let's get this guy pulled apart. We got 6 bolts for the exhaust housing and 6 bolts for the compressor. All right, so now we're left with just the center cartridge, which I wish it was in good condition. I would leave it, but as you guys can see, she's pretty freaking rusty. So we gotta pull this wheel off, get this thing fully disassembled so we can get this guy coated as well. This is everything that is being Cerakoted, quite a bit of parts. That should help, hopefully a decent amount, keeping heat down in the bay, and especially keeping the heat down off of this guy here. I was debating Cerakoting the res and the master cylinder as well. I'm not sure if that would help. I guess if we still have issues later on when we do everything that I'm wanting to do as far as heat management goes, we could do some coatings there. But for now, we should be good. So the very first step in the Cerakote process is going to be to degrease everything. You can use simple green or acetone, or just what I'm gonna use is super clean degreaser, or they say you can use brake cleaner as well. Everything is degreased, washed, and blown off. From here, we need to mask off anything that we do not want sandblasted or Cerakoted. So on the wastegate, that'll be that shaft right there. We can get Cerakote on the inside, not a big deal. I'll also plug where that shaft goes through just to be sure. Cartridge, I'll mask that. Down here, plug that hole there. Everything else should be good to go. Let's do some sandblasting, starting off with the hot side of the turbo. All the parts are hanging from the powder coat rack. These guys are gonna go in the oven for 30 minutes at 500 degrees. This isn't absolutely necessary, but it does say on the Cerakote guide, what does it say? I'll read it to you. We recommend but do not require that the metal parts are placed in an oven at 500 degrees for 30 minutes. This will evaporate any moisture, blah, 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 blah. They recommend it for a reason, so we are going to do it. Parts for Cerakote are in the oven. I went ahead and blasted the compressor housing and our little turbo guard there. All that is gonna go splatter black, and I figured at the same time, I'm going to powder coat this guy splatter black. It's a little too out there for me. I don't really like it, so black it is. Parts are out of the oven and fully cooled down 100% all the way. Now we are gonna go ahead, blow them off with compressed air, slap a bit of the Cerakote into our Cerakoting gun, and go ahead and get these things sprayed out. Thankfully, this Cerakote is oven cure, so we can get this thing fully reassembled today. If it was air cure, we'd have to wait a couple days if I remember correctly, but oven cure, we spray it on, let it sit and air dry for 15 minutes, put it back in the oven at 500 degrees for 1 hour, pull it, let it cool, and then it's cured fully. This stuff does separate, so make sure before you put it in the gun, you shake it up very, very good. I've been shaking it for about 10 minutes. Gotta make sure all those solids are mixed in. I initially was gonna do bronze on all of this, but this tungsten color seems quite nice. This, from what I'm seeing so far, is such a sick color. Maybe my favorite I've ever sprayed from Cerakote. The bronze is nice, but man, oh man, this is gonna look so sick. 15-minute air dry, oven, 500 degree for 1 hour, done. Hello my friends, it is the next day and I have some unfortunate news to share with you. We have to redo all of the Cerakoted parts because I didn't spray them right. I pulled them out of the oven, let them cool down. Notice like a bunch of overspray type of thing. You can see that the Cerakote actually just wipes off. So the problem was, and I already recoated this, as you can see, it does not wipe off. These were all sprayed way too lightly. It was pretty much just dry spray going on to the parts. Now that we know how to properly spray it, this guy turned out very beautiful. It is time to sandblast all of the Cerakote off and respray them. Not a big deal, live and you learn, now we know. Alrighty, all coatings are finished up, so now we need to go ahead and reassemble the wastegate and the turbo and get the car back together. Go for a quick rip, a 20-minute rip, and see if anything changes as far as heat-wise goes. Even if it doesn't, this stuff is gonna look so good in the engine bay. Look at this lethal combo. Splatter black on the compressor housing with the Cerakote. Man, oh man, that looks good. And this guy as well. I'm super glad we did this black. Oh yeah, that's nice.
Zoom, not today. I don't got makeup on. I'm good. I'm good.
Man, oh man, to say I am in love would be an understatement. Absolutely, absolutely freaking dig how the piping turned out. The tungsten color from Cerakote looks so damn good. Not to mention the new splatter black turbo with the turbo guard. That turned out very, very nice. Now coloring and looks is one thing. Seeing how it performs, testing to see if it actually dropped the heat down in the bay is the more important thing. So with that being said, let's go on a nice little 20-minute drive. I'm gonna do the same exact loop that I did before and see how this thing reacts. And see what kind of temperatures we're working with. So before, the master was at 375, reservoir at 260. So the master is now around 280 to 300. And the reservoir right around 190. 80 degrees lower on the master and about 80 lower on the reservoir as well. Now I got one more thing I want to try to keep the heat where it belongs and keep the cold air where it also belongs, and that is some goodies from my good friends over at Funk Motorsports. This package just came in. Let's open her up. I know we got a turbo blanket in there and maybe some other snazzy items as well. All right, let's check out what we got. We have some hose protectant, definitely gonna need this. Some more hose protectant. This nice, big, beautiful turbo blanket that's gonna drop our temperatures even lower, which is exciting. That should look nice on there. This is the main thing that I think is going to be the biggest game changer. A reservoir blanket. A nice little 60 millimeter wastegate blanket. A lot of the stuff's gonna have to wait until the car cools down. And then just some more hose protectant as well. Sick, we got a hat, some jet tags, some stickers. Massive thank you to the guys over at Funk Motorsports for being willing to help out with this build. It's gonna, I'm assuming, drastically help out with our heat reduction in the bay, which is exciting. The thing I'm most excited for is the turbo blanket. I think it's gonna look really, really nice. I love how their products look. Let's get her on. So we have two different sizes of these clutch brake fluid reservoir blankets. Also says can be used as an exhaust blanket wraparound, and I think that's actually going to be a better option for what we're trying to do. You can see the master cylinder used to be right up next to the manifold in the turbo. This blanket takes care of pretty much all of that. Now right underneath the master cylinder is our downpipe, and I think if we put this on the downpipe instead of this on the reservoir, it's actually going to do more good there. So can't really see down there. I'm gonna try to fish this thing on and get a spring installed. See what that does for our heat management. All right, we got that guy on, the downpipe right underneath the master. Still have the smaller one if we need to do it on the brake reservoir. last thing I want to install is this guy. This is for the wastegate. All right, just got done with our drive. Let's see where we're at. So we started at 375. No way. This thing is freaking dead cold. Look at that. Turbo blankets are freaking great. So everything, the reservoir and the master are both around 140, 150 now. Pretty freaking nuts. Now we can literally just put our hand on the turbo blanket and it's warm. It's not hot at all. I can put my tongue on it if I need it, which I'm not gonna do because that'd be weird. I think it's safe to say 150-degree brake master and brake reservoir is plenty chilly to not boil your brake fluid, at least from an external source. Now, of course, if we go rip on the car for 40 years on a track and boil it from actually using the brakes, that's a whole different issue, that's a whole different scenario. But from external heat, like we were having issues with, that issue is 100% resolved, which is very, very exciting because I was a little bit worried about that. Not to mention the bay looks so much better now, so much cleaner, in my opinion, with the Cerakote, with the splatter black on the turbo. Of course, the Funk Motorsports blankets that we installed, those look very, very nice. I do owe a massive thank you to the guys over at Funk Motorsports for being willing to help out with the build. Thank you. I'll have all of their products that we installed linked down below. And of course, as always, massive thank you to Prismatic Powders. Splatter black powder on both of these guys here turned out super sick. And then Cerakote. I will have all of the Cerakote linked down below that we applied. Pretty insane. We started out at 375 degrees and we cut it more than in half with some nice heat management products. Gonna wrap up the video right here. Drop a comment below, let me know what you guys think, and I will see you boys in the next episode. The next video is pretty sick. You don't want to miss it. I'll see you guys then.